Just a reminder that this podcast has the 3 S's: sex, swearing, and spoilers. Please take care.
October, November, December, January. Waking up.
There's our excerpt for you.
Perfect.
Welcome
Very
back
insightful.
to Books, Bitches, and Bullshit. And once again, we brought you another guest. This is Lori. Say hi, Lori.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Lori. I'm a master's student at Dow with these guys.
We kidnapped her after class.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. Actually, it was during class.
But we gave up halfway through, and then I was like, do you want to be in this podcast with us? And here she is. The doors are locked and you can't leave. So.
It's all good. I read all the same books, so we have plenty of reading material.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So what are we doing today, Grace?
For some reason, we're talking about New Moon.
Well, not for some reason. We did the first book, so we gotta do book 2.
I don't think that's true. I feel like I proved that by not finishing the ACOTAR series, you don't need to finish a series you start.
No, Grace. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You have to finish what you start.
Nah.
I read books. I don't play games. I don't do sports.
Grace didn't come here to make friends. Yeah, so now we are going through part 2 of your teenage nostalgia journey with New Moon by Stephenie Meyer. As a reminder, we did do book 1, which was Twilight, If You Live Under a Rock. So go back a couple episodes and listen to that. And here we are. Mm-hmm. Should we get started? Do you have anything you want to say before we get started?
I mean, I enjoy this because, like, the books aren't really my teenage nostalgia. But I do just have a general deep love for urban fantasy. Just deep in my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't tell me you don't at least a little bit admire Smire.
Oh, Avi. She's queen shit. She started a genre.
She did.
We continue to stand despite ourselves.
And we have her to thank for 50 Shades and the other masterpiece, which is apparently getting a sequel known as 365 Days.
Oh, yes. And there's another one that I learned about recently.
Gabriel's Inferno.
Classic.
Grace told me about this, like, Amazon Prime channel, Passionflix, where they just adapt, like, stuff that's on Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, pretty much. It's Lifetime movies, but since it's a streaming service, they can do smut. It's great.
Like, why not? It's a huge base. Like,
yeah.
You know?
Like, that's guaranteed money in your pocket,
yeah.
No matter how shitty it is.
Yeah, people are always going to be lonely, so... it's not criticism, just fact.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wait, are streaming services, like, are their movies subject to the same rating system as movies in theaters? Like, do they
absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
So there is, like, it's like PG-13, PG.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it is different for a cable channel to try and do sex movies than it is for a streaming service that already has sex movies on it to do sex movies.
That's true, but 50 Shades is not a streaming service movie. It came out in theaters, I think.
It did. But the sex in that is not really explicit. It's only explicit enough to be an R rating instead of an X rating.
There is an unrated version, I know.
There is an unrated version. It's not that much better.
Have you seen it?
Well, yeah, because that's the one that's on Netflix. I think.
I have no idea.
I think. I'm not confident, though. I'll be honest. Yeah, I watched them all on Netflix. So, whatever version that is.
Couldn't tell you. No idea.
Is subpar.
Was something like that ever going to be good?
Okay. Listen. We can get into this at a different time, but like the handling of that as a romance instead of a thriller was a mistake.
You think?
Yes. It would have been such a better movie with the acknowledgement that Christian Grey is the villain.
Yeah, although, do we rate him as more problematic than Hardin or less problematic than Hardin?
More!
Okay. Yeah.
He leaves a line of women traumatized.
So does Hardin. Except he films it.
Films it?
Oh, oops. Oh yeah, this is a recurring plotline that happens in book 3. Tessa finds out that there's, like, numerous girls that Hardin made sex tapes with and proceeded to blackmail them with. Yeah,
okay,
they get married after that, too.
One of Christian's exes has an entire mental breakdown where she comes into she breaks into several houses at knife point.
As one does.
As one does. And she threatens to kill herself in front of him one time. It is a whole thing. Anyway, men suck. Sometimes fictional men suck.
But what about vampire men? Do they suck too?
These vampire men, kind of.
That's true.
Most of them.
So we find ourselves back in Forks, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is the end of... No, it's the beginning of senior year, isn't it?
Yes, because it starts in September. It's very important. It starts in September.
Yeah, that's true, because prom happens at the end of the year, and the last book ended with them going to prom. Okay, yeah. Would like to know how the Cullens exist in Forks during the summer, but anyway.
Presumably it's just as dreary then.
Would you like to set the scene, Grace?
For New Moon?
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much of a scene.
Yeah, not really. Except that Bella and Edward continue to have the conversation where she's like, I want to be a vampire, and he's like, oh, no you don't, your soul, oh my gosh, you don't. And she's like, yeah, I fucking do. Which, like, we stand her for being stubborn in this specific scenario.
Yeah, what else? Oh, I don't know why this sticks out in my mind, but Edward has convinced the school administrators to change their class schedules so they'd have every freaking class together.
Oh my god.
I don't know why I remember that, but I can't even explain why that makes me mad. You know? Nothing like...
Because it's creepy.
Yeah.
It's like the simplest form of creepy he could pull.
They are reading Romeo and Juliet in English class, which
Yes.
is a plot point for some reason.
It's very important that you know that this is a Romeo and Juliet story.
It's very important.
That the world is pulling them apart, and they are star-crossed lovers. Mm-hmm. Even though, at this point, almost no one is stopping them from being together except for Edward.
Yeah, no one really cares.
No. Like, almost everyone is on board, except for him.
I just realized that, like, in this case, Bella is Mercutio, you know, where she bleeds for the first time, because the whole thing about Romeo where Mercutio dies, he's that point that starts the whole thing.
Oh, goodness. My head just exploded.
See, I've never read Romeo and Juliet, so I'm just hearing words and being like, okay, sure.
So I'm Romeo and Juliet.
It is worth reading, like, once, just to say you did, because, like, I know cultural osmosis is a thing, but it's...
Yeah.
There are a couple things.
Yeah, like I watched West Side Story.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Wait, the new one?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay. Well, it's Bella's 18th birthday.
Yes.
Or but even before that, we wake up. Well, we don't wake up. She's in a nightmare where she sees her grandmother in a mirror, and Edward is standing beside Bella, and Bella says, "Grandmother, let me introduce you to Edward." But in the mirror, every time Bella moves, her grandmother moves, and then she realizes it's not her grandmother, it's her, super aged, and Edward's still looking like he does. So the implication here is that he never turned her into a vampire, and that she's just old, and he's not.
Which she considers to be, like, the worst thing in the fucking world. But the amount of vampire content that I have found that is, like, one character is the old human, and the other is this young-looking vampire, like, it has so much lovely and adorable potential. But, like, What We Do in the Shadows takes a comedy route for it. And then this really cute webcomic called My Vampire Husband does more of, like, we're just existing as old people. Anyway. But yeah, Bella gets a big complex about this aging business.
See, I do feel like she is allowed to feel that way, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's not, I mean, maybe it is a little bit not as big as she inflates it, but it's not completely unwarranted, I don't think.
No, and, like, I think it's important to continue and emphasize that all of these characters are teenagers, so they are going to be dramatic about literally everything, and jump to so many conclusions that we, as adults, just decide are childish and petty and everything. Like, no, they're still pretty much children. Like, they're allowed to be weird and dramatic about this. Like, there's not an adage, but I've heard before that, like, you can only really do Romeo and Juliet stories about and for teenagers, because that's the only time when you have feelings this strong. I'm like, yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense. That's why Wattpad exists, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're at Bella's birthday party at the Cullens. She specifically said that she, A, does not want presents, and B, does not want a party. So what happens? Presents and a party.
Yeah.
Lori, what happens at this party?
Well, she gets a paper cut that
The mother of all paper cuts.
Yeah.
gushes way too much blood.
In the movie, like, we had a whole conversation about, like, ain't no one bleeds that much from a paper cut.
It's like, I don't even bleed from a paper cut. It's just there. And then Jasper loses his shit, and Edward sends her away. Wait.
Well, first
That's-
you mean
that's
Pushes
reacts
her into a
that is
wall.
last table.
Jumping ahead. But yeah. He, yeah.
Reacts completely reasonably.
Oh yeah, totally. It's like, yeah, just add more blood to the situation.
Yeah.
That'll help so much.
Shoves her into the wall, so then she's bleeding more, and then Carlisle is literally the only one who can approach her because he's had hundreds of years to deal with human blood. And the rest of them are like, sorry, babe. Haha, gotta go.
Well, none of the rest of them don't freak out. They just get uncomfortable and leave.
Yeah,
which is fine.
exactly. Sure. Granted.
Well, Edward doesn't freak out either, but Carlisle, I think, says to him, go talk to Jasper, because he's gonna be,
Upset.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like while we're describing this, it just sounds so much like the movie that I'm just like, how much of the movie was just straight up like frame for frame a remake of the book?
Actually, I would
A
say
lot
the
of
books are pretty, like, the movies were pretty faithful adaptations for the most part.
Yeah, although I did notice that they, like, have condensed a lot of things together. Like, Alice in the movie is there for, like, maybe half a day, if that, and in the book she's there for, like, a while. And Jacob doesn't know the whole time that she's there, but in the book, like, he shows up and drops Bella off, and he's like, there's a bloodsucker in the house. And she's like, cool, it's probably someone that I know, so fuck off.
Which is hilarious that that's her reaction when she's literally being
know.
hunted.
Like,
Also-
it could also be Victoria, you fucking idiot.
Why is the better option to leave her, like, to be hunted by this person that you just spent the last book protecting her from?
I think his logic, as he says later, is that Victoria's whole purpose for wanting to kill Belle is that Edward cares about her, so it would also hurt him. So if she thought that Edward didn't care anymore, then the whole purpose is kind of defeated.
But clearly it didn't.
Yeah,
No.
clearly.
Because Victoria's a vindictive bitch. And we love this journey for her.
Yeah.
But also, we do not see her actually in this book.
Really?
We hear about her.
You hear about her and hear about her only.
Yes. So,
It's heavily implied that she's the one killing all the people in the building, which is a subplot that's happening. And it counts as a subplot because Bella does not care enough.
Bella doesn't care about anything. Oh, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay. So, basically, the day after this disastrous party, Edward says to Bella after they get home from school, come take a walk with me in the woods, alone.
I mean,
Yeah, like, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's how this relationship started.
that's true. Maybe
You
it's not
know,
as weird as I think it is. Anyway,
It
so
is definitely weird.
He essentially breaks her heart and stomps all over it in the worst possible fashion. No, it's not even that they're just breaking up. He says, I don't love you anymore. I don't want you.
Yeah.
And she's like, what happened with Jasper was nothing. And he said, nothing compared to what could have happened. I'm leaving. My family's leaving. Don't look for me. And do me a big favor and don't do anything stupid.
Which it is the worst setup for what's to come that I've almost ever encountered. To just have one character be like, "Don't be stupid while I'm away." What the
that a
fuck does that
challenge?
mean? Honestly. And then
that a
she
challenge?
takes it as one.
So then Edward disappears because he's, super fast. She stumbles through the woods running after him, screaming. It gets dark. She lies down in the middle of the woods and faints.
Cries herself into depression.
Yeah. And then we see her again. She's being carried by Sam Yulee back to her house because she did not come back for hours and hours, so Charlie organized a search party. Sam Yulee is shirtless. Put a pin in that for later.
It's very important that he's wearing jorts.
Yes. In the drinking game for this movie, you are supposed to take a drink every time you see the jorts.
Really?
Yep.
Sounds painful.
That's fair.
Yep. Tessa and I got pretty turned.
And you guys didn't even do it every time.
No, I just yelled jorts every time there were jorts. And
It was
took a
hilarious.
drink. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty great. And then we get the wonderful montage. Grace would like to perform
yes.
a performance for you. that's a joke.
Another dramatic
I was gonna say I will not be
performance.
performing because I got really my my heart elevated a little bit, and I was like, maybe we won't. Yeah, no, that's the 4 months of blank pages that we reenacted at the beginning, which, like, honestly, that's a power move. I'm gonna be real, like, I really respect that as a representation of depression, like, went off a little bit there. It's super memeable in the movie, just because of the dramatic music and the dramatic camera turning.
The single
bonkers.
shot.
The single shot. Like, it is impressive, question mark?
And sending emails that don't get delivered to
Oh
Alice.
my gosh, that as a running line is the actual, maybe most depressing thing of this movie. Is Bella just continuously sending emails to Alice to an email address that Alice no longer has access to, so every time she sends that email, it, like, bounces.
Yeah.
Or whatever the phrase for emails is. Like, that is the depression for me. Like, ooh.
Like, continuing to do this thing that you know is doing nothing and seeing that it's going nowhere. And just, like, the pain of that coming back on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know Meyer's story. I don't know what she's been up to, what her life has been.
I just
but
know
holy
she's a
fuck.
Mormon, and the only reason I know that is because you told me.
Yeah. But holy fuck, she went off on the depression in this. Like, as much as it sucks that it was triggered by a dude breaking up with her, to have this 4 months, 5? 4? A long time of depression. Like, what's it?
Well, I mean, if you count
It's good
her
shit.
continuing mental illness afterwards, almost a year.
Almost a full year.
So,
Fucked up
what
shit.
happens then? Charlie continues to prove that he's the best character
Yes.
of this entire series.
Hands down.
And he's like, I'm sending you back to Phoenix, because this is not...
Florida.
Wherever to go with her mom.
Yes.
And she's like, no, I can't go. And he's like, why? And she's like, well, my friends are here. And he's like, you don't have any friends. You don't hang out with them. You don't speak to them. Which, like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole thing that comes up, is that she has not, like, when we say not talking, like, I don't even mean, like, so much as a hi. Like, she sits by herself in the lunchroom. That's it. She doesn't speak to anybody. She goes to work and that's it. And she says, that's not true. I'm going to the movies with Jessica tonight. And he's like, really? And she's like, yeah, totally lying.
Totally.
And then she goes inside, calls Jessica, and asks if Jessica will go to the movies to her, and thankfully Jessica says yes. So she didn't actually have to fully lie.
We stand Jessica.
Yeah. So then we go to this movie, they come out, Bella does not want to be there and is, I understand that Jessica's kind of she is a flat character, but Bella's, like, being so needlessly rude to her in her head. Like,
Yeah.
Jessica did not have to say yes to you, particularly after you didn't speak to her for 5 months.
Yeah.
God bless Anna Kendrick, though.
Yeah. Honestly. But yeah, and, like, she is flat, but she's flat in that, like, stock character way where her whole thing is she's an airhead who's secretly smart, which I like that. That's a fun character to me. I do enjoy those. As much as I enjoy also just, like, airhead is airhead. But yeah, and it's not even, like, one conversation is not going to cure your depression, but Bella is definitely just being queen bitch there. And to, like, further that, she notices a bunch of old dudes on motorcycles.
Yes.
And is like, ooh, that looks like some shit I could get up to. Remember back in the, last year when I almost got raped by a bunch of old dudes? Let's see if that brings Edward back. Because,
it makes sense, right?
it makes sense. That's how he
Totally.
randomly showed up the first time. Like, why wouldn't it happen again?
Jessica's like, what the hell are you doing?
Like, where are you going? Do you know those guys? And Bella's like, yeah, I totally know those guys. Definitely. Yep, And then Jess like, cool, I'm gonna stay here. Like,
They look sketchy.
they look super sketchy, and they are being very loud and, like, probably a little bit drunk,
Yeah, I think
so...
they're outside of a bar or something.
Yeah, like-
And then she goes on, she walks up to a dude, somehow manages to score a ride on his motorcycle.
Yeah.
And, Lori, who do we see? Drum roll! Heck yeah!
Obviously, Edward.
Obviously.
Yeah, but not actually.
But not actually, it's a hallucination of Edward.
Yeah, it's a vision of Edward. And Bella yells at the driver to pull over, and she gets off, and she's developed a new theory.
Yes.
That every time she does something stupid, she might be able to see a vision of Edward. this is where I start to have the problems, but we'll get to that at the end.
It is fucking tough.
Jessica's like, what the hell? You just left me here while you went on this guy's motorcycle and did God knows what. What the hell?
You could have been murdered, which you wouldn't.
And Bella's like, can you calm down? And I kind of understood why Jessica was mad. Like, I would be mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so the next part of her plan is to involve baby Jacob Black. He's not so baby anymore, I guess.
He's still baby at this point.
He's
still long hair baby.
Oh yeah, he's still baby.
Oh yeah, he's got terrible wig
baby.
still.
Still the
Yes.
terrible wig. It is such a bad wig in the movie.
The girls on Books and Betches insist on calling him Jacobe, which I love. I don't know why I find that funny, but
I don't know. It's great.
So Bella's driving by a junkyard one day, as one does, and she
does.
notices two broken down dirt bikes out front, and they're free. And she's like, I know who could fix this up.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob could. So she rolls up to Jacob's house. He just happens to be there on the reserve, and she's like, hey, I got these bikes. Do you want to fix them?
Which, they have some really cute banter, honestly.
They do. He's like, oh yeah, I would love to hang out with you.
And it's really nice that, like, she is finally trying to be his friend again, because, you know, when she stopped hanging out with everyone else because she started hanging out with Edward, and then got into this big depression moment, like, that was... She did not interact with anyone past Edward when he was there.
No,
and that
Alice.
meant, if that. Which, you're already like my sister. Like, so her being able to reconnect with Jacob again is really nice, especially because, like, Charlie is happy about that too, because he knows Jacob and likes him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's best buddies with Billy Black, Jacob's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who rocks. We also like Billy.
We like.
He doesn't get to do a lot, but I like him.
But he knows what's up.
He knows what's up.
He does. He knows all the. He knows. It's heavily implied that he knows that the Cullens are what they are. Jacob at this point doesn't. Like, he knows the legends, but he doesn't actually know that they're real.
Not to jump the gun, but was Billy never a wolf?
I don't know. Maybe.
Because I thought the whole thing was that...
wait a minute. It's that there can only be one wolf at a
family?
time.
What?
Yeah, or something like that.
Like, per family?
But Billy's also in a wheelchair, so maybe that's why he doesn't.
Like
I
he had a
just think
trauma
wolves
and he
can be
can't.
disabled.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he, like, actually can't transform. Maybe. I don't actually know. I should look this up before we do book 3.
Maybe. That isn't it. Yeah, that's it. Because I know that there was a whole thing about how, like, again, jumping the gun, but because Jacob is, like, the grand...
He's a
somewhere
direct
in his
descendant
line,
of the original wolf, yeah.
the original alpha, and then, like, also related to, like, another alpha in his family line or something. So, like, their family being wolves is a big deal moment, which makes me feel like Billy should also be some wolf somewhere in there. Although I also feel like the way that the wolves are set up in this book implies that, like, they only become wolves with reason.
Yeah.
Right? Like the whole reason that all of these kids on the res are suddenly becoming wolves is
because there's a vampire around,
there's a vampire threat that
and
isn't
there's,
the
like,
Cullens.
the puberty element, too, I think.
Oh, yeah, classic.
Yeah, so there's that. And Jacob says, yeah, I will fix these bikes for you, but I don't really have the money. And Bella was like, I will pay for it all because I want to see my boyfriend. She does not say this out
She
loud.
will not admit this to him.
No, but that is the whole reason. So he fixes the bikes. She gets on the dirt bike. She's terrible at driving it. What happens? She crashes, bleeds, you know.
Yes.
And a big point of that conversation is she keeps apologizing. He's like, why are you apologizing for bleeding? Like, says it very innocuously.
Yeah.
And she's like,
No big deal. Although, by skipping to the dirt bike scene, we do skip the setup for why we don't like Sam and all his boys.
oh,
Because
yes.
Jacob is convinced this whole time that Sam, like, runs a cult, quote unquote, that Bella later refers to as Sam's gang.
Well, I think it's that Quill and Embry were hanging out with them for a while Jacob fixed his bikes, and then they stopped showing up for some reason, and Bella was like later on, oh, where's Quill and Embry? And he's like, oh, they're in Sam's cult now.
They joined Sam's cult. Although it's interesting because, like, in the book, I think Quill doesn't join for a while. Like Bella is trying to find Jacob, and she's like, yo, Quill, where is he? And he's like, I think he's with Sam and his boys in Embry. I'm like, oh, fuck. So, yeah, but it is definitely sus that, like, people have stopped showing up to things. But it's not because they're going missing and being eaten by whatever animals in the woods. No, they're just joining the Jorts cult.
The Jorts, yeah.
The Jorts cult.
The shirtless Jorts cult.
The shirtless Jorts
exactly.
cult. But yeah, because we see them cliff diving. And Bella gets super stressed out, and she's like, oh my gosh, like, he's killing them. They're gonna die. And Jacob's like,
it's fine.
No, they're
Calm down.
just cliff diving. This is the thing
It's
people
such a
do all the
rush,
time.
and then she's like,
So she discovers the ultimate way to visualize Edward.
Yeah.
She puts a big old pin in that.
Yeah.
We're gonna need this for later.
The handy tool for later. But yeah, she does.
So-
The dirt bikes do happen first. She apologizes for bleeding, and he's like, fucking why? Even though, like, it just boggles the mind that he can't put 2 and 2 together more quickly, because he's the one that tells her about the cold ones myth.
Yeah.
And she put it together in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Using
And
good
so, like,
old-fashioned Google.
Yeah.
I would have expected that he had, like, some suspicions of this being a real thing, but no. Not a day in his life did he think that this would be a real thing.
Listen, we didn't say he was smart.
I know.
And then, so she decides to, well, she arranges a group movie date.
Yes.
But then it's mentioned that,
Because Mike invites her to the movie. And
yeah,
Jacob
and a
also
bunch
wants to go
of,
to
she
the
knows
movie.
the date, so she invites a bunch of other people who all get food poisoning from the cafeteria, but she brings her lunch so she doesn't get sick.
Yeah.
And she's at the movie, and it ends up with her, Jacob, and Mike. And Mike suggests a rom-com, and she's like, no romance. Let's go see this movie that is called Face Punch.
Which, like, what a Community move. No, Community was definitely on at the time, which had, like, Kick Puncher, which was playing off something else that actually was a real 80s schlock movie, so, like...
I would go see something called Kick Puncher as opposed to Face Punch.
His kicks have the strength of punches, I think. Or is it punch strength of kicks?
You gotta do, like, a kick-punch combo.
Who knows? But yeah, so she is barely paying attention, and both of these boys, I love this shot in the movie where
They have their
it just
hands
pans,
open
it
for
pans
her.
along
my
their
God.
like the armrest, and you see Jacob's hand is open, like inviting for Bella's hand to go into his, and then you pan past Bella, and Mike's hand is also doing the exact same thing.
Like, it's just such an unnatural way to sit. Like,
It
it's
is.
obviously what that's for.
It is, and you just like, it just like pans up to her face, and she's just like scowling down at their hands, like, why is this my life? Which, honestly, for being such a not like other girls, damn, does she attract him like those other girls?
Yeah, and I was hoping, like, this was never gonna happen. I was hoping that one of them would do the yawning arm thing.
Right.
Can you imagine?
But
Oh my God.
no, they're both too baby.
Yeah, and I think she even says at one point their hands are too warm. Because Edward's skin is cold.
Oh my gosh!
She's like, I prefer cold skin. It's like,
I
what?
have no doubt. I have no doubt.
Other than, like, the undead trope, like, that just bothers me so much. Because it's just like, why do you want to feel something that is not warm?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But then Mike gets sick, so they leave the theater. Mike goes into the bathroom and is puking.
Yeah.
Jacob and Bella have a heart-to-heart, and Jacob says to her that he would never hurt her like Edward did, and that he would never leave her. And just as they're about to kiss, Mike comes back out. Jacob gets irrationally angry. Like, this isn't just me, it's, like, emphasized. It's
Like,
yeah, this is a
super.
plot point.
Yeah.
And Mike's like, is there a problem? And Jacob's like, you're the problem. And, like, gets up in his
Just
face.
entirely unprompted.
Yeah, and Bella's like, what the hell is the matter with you? So they all go home, and Jacob disappears for a little bit. She can't get a hold of him. She goes to the house. There's no one there.
The phone lines aren't working for some reason, so she
Yeah.
keeps calling and then, like, not being able to reach him. And then she finally can, and Billy answers,
He's
and
being
she's like,
evasive.
hey, can I talk to Jake, though? And he's like,
He is mono.
nah. And then, like, she just keeps trying to call, but, like, it just won't go through. So she's like, are the phones still broken, or are they just, like, not picking up for me? Like, did he get caller ID, I think is the phrase. Like, did he finally invest in caller ID so that he can ignore my calls? Like, she's so She's so fucking sad.
Charlie is freaking out because Bella's starting to descend deeper into depression again because she'd been getting a little bit better since she started hanging out with Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then she eventually heads down to the reserve to like go
confront him. Rather.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I jumped the gun.
She confronts. She goes to the reserve twice.
Yeah.
For this confrontation
he's not there.
business.
Billy won't let her in.
Yeah.
And then she has descended back into the depression to the point where she wants to go and try to see, quote unquote, Edward again. So she decides to go find the meadow in January.
Oh yeah.
On a mountain.
Yeah. Which, like, you gotta give chops to the symbolism of having the meadow be dead.
Yes.
That's good. That's good shit.
Yeah.
As much as, like, it sooner implies that their love is dead, even though that's not what's happening. But, yeah. No, and instead of learning anything, Laurent is there.
Yes, instead of, she sees a vampire, but it's not the vampire she wanted. And we see Laurent.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about this conversation, Lori?
Sure. So, he does what he does and, almost tries to kill her and,
Well, he frames it as like a mercy thing.
Yeah, he's a super creeper about it.
Yeah, because, he wants to, take away the pain of, Edward leaving her.
Yeah, and Victoria sent him back to, scope things out, see if she was still with the Cullens, and he says, if I left you to Victoria, she would make it hurt, every second that she was killing you, so I'm just gonna do it, real fast for you.
I'm just gonna, suck you dry real fucking quick.
And we do
promise it's entirely for you.
Yes, and we do see Edward.
Yes, she, hears a voice, the voice, whatever, because she won't say his name. And he keeps, giving her instructions, trying to, tell her.
Better.
lie better, beg, say something else, stuff like that. Because she has a whole tangent about, how Jasper would be upset and all this stuff. Because, he wants to know where the Cullens are. Oh, are you alone? Oh, how are you doing and everything? So, her hallucination is trying to give her instructions, but it's just, not fucking working. So she's convinced herself she's gonna die.
Just reinforces my point of why would you leave her?
Why would you leave her behind?
They're just gonna kill her either
make
way.
Things worse.
Yeah.
And then she's saved by a pack of wolves.
Oh, yeah.
Just hears a bunch of growling.
That's where she learns the truth.
But they're abnormally large wolves. This is very clear.
It's important. And she's convinced that because she's the, quote, easier prey, they will attack her, but they just walk right by. She's like, oh fuck, what's this about? And then Laurent, fucking books it, and they all book it after him.
Apparently they kill him.
Apparently, but she does not know that for, a really long time.
Yes.
She's just like, oh, Laurent could still be out there for, a while.
Yes. She goes back to her house in Forks because, meanwhile, in the background, hikers keep being killed in the woods.
They're convinced it's a wild animal, which... That was also what happened
in the last one.
Original one, right? They all thought it was a wild animal.
So she goes in there and she says, Charlie, it's a pack of wolves, because Charlie is the police chief, so for some reason he's also responsible. I guess it makes sense, they're murders. And he says, cool, let's go on a hunt. And Billy Black is like, fuck. Because Billy Black knows what's up.
And there's a guy who,
Harry Clearwater.
But he's not...
He knows stuff too.
Yeah.
He's Charlie's fishing buddy.
Yeah. So he is, trying to include himself in all of these hunts and searches to, make sure that he can kind of keep up with things, which is clearer in the movie than it is in the books.
Yeah.
Since the books are only from Bella's perspective. But...
Yeah.
He's a handy fella.
Yes.
He's a good boy.
Yes.
It's a shame we only know him for this book.
So they head out on this hunt, and then Bella goes back down to the reserve to warn Jacob, and she sees him in the jorts and no shirt. The bad wig is gone.
He cut all his hair off. What the heck?
Yes, and he still won't tell her anything. He's kind of rude. He tells her to book it, and then she sees Sam coming out of the woods. She goes up to Sam, basically threatens him. What did you do to him? Why can't I see him? I think it's Embry starts getting...
No, Paul.
Paul starts getting aggressive, and she gets in his face, and Sam says, get the fuck out of the way. Yeah. And then Jacob phases to protect her at the same time that Paul phases, revealing that they are wolves.
Ow!
Exactly.
It's my fucking fave. Like, in the movie, I'm a little bit obsessed with that scene. I think it's fucking bonkers. That's his equivalent, this is the skin of a killer Bella scene.
Where he leaps into the air and twirls and then comes back down as a werewolf.
Yeah, which, like, in the book it's way more boring. He just, like, falls to his knees and turns into a wolf, which, like...
so graceful in the movie.
It's so graceful in the movie. It's so, like, it's so cinematic, as it should be. But...
Have you seen the behind the scenes for the movie where he's just in like a gray costume?
Oh yeah, the green screen costume, yeah.
It's so good. Cause he's like there as the wolf and she's just petting him.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. So they run off into the woods and Sam is calm and stuff. You know, Sam actually, I really like him as a character.
He's pretty cool.
I do like him, and he says, "All right, let's
hurt
just
his
go."
wife real bad, but he's pretty cool.
Yeah, he says, "Let's go wait it out at Emily's house." Emily is Sam's fiance, and it's revealed. Sam kind of explains to Bella some of the characteristics of wolves now that she knows, because they aren't allowed to tell her, but if she finds out, they can then be open with her.
Yeah. Which, like, it's the same thing that the vampires were doing, except I think vampires, their thing is that you're supposed to kill them once they learn.
Or you turn them.
But werewolves aren't as strict about that.
This becomes an issue later on. You can't turn them, I don't think.
No.
So, werewolves have mates. Fated mates, they're imprinted. So when you see your fated mate, you imprint on her. It's like a spiritual mark that you can't actually see, but you just like know. So Emily is Sam's fiance, and when Bella sees her, she's got a big scar across her face, and it is revealed that, to Sam's eternal regret, Emily was too close to him when he phased and he scratched her face. So now she's got a scar. And Emily, despite knowing that Bella is in with the vampires, welcomes her in, and everyone is really kind to her, and she remarks a couple times like how it's like a family, almost like the Cullens, but more like rowdy.
Yeah. Which it's my favorite shit. I love it so much.
I actually really like that scene of all the wolves. Like,
wolf dynamics are so fun.
Yeah.
Werewolf dynamics are so fun.
Yeah.
So much better than you almost dying from someone like trying to eat you.
Yes. It's great.
And then she's like, "You guys have to be careful, Laurent's out there," and they're like, "Not anymore, he ain't.
No,
we
he ain't."
deprived him of his head."
But she's also like floored by that, because she has spent this whole time being convinced that
Nothing
vampires
is
are like
stronger.
immortal, and that they're like they can only be killed by each other. And then Jacob, like much later on, Jacob is like, "We're literally designed to do this. Like this was our mystical creation. This is the reason we exist, is to kill vampires." Which like is annoying as a world building aspect, but it works well enough, you know?
So there's a whole fan theory about this that I know about that I'll tell you about at the end of.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's a pin. It's a
You'll
pin
be proud of me for venturing into fandoms too, because this was very intriguing.
I do love.
So what happens then? Paul and Jacob come back, and it's all good. They sorted it out, did their bro wrestling, and it's all good. And yeah, but I mean, they pretty much, like, Jacob and Bella, like, continue to be friends now, and things
But also
seem
they're
fine.
just arguing all the time. Because that's with the bit when they go to the beach and Bella is like, "Can't you just not be a werewolf? It's wrong." And he's like,
Says the
"What
girl
the fuck?"
who's in love with a vampire.
Says the girl who's in love with a vampire. First he's like, "It's not a choice, actually. Like, I kind of have to do this." And then he's like, "Also, you're being a fucking hypocrite. Like, why is it so different from being a vampire?" Like, obviously he has strong feelings about being compared to a vampire, but like also from her human eyes, it can't be that big of a deal. And he is also a fucking piss baby the entire time about her love for the vampire family, because now that he knows everything,
He knows for sure that it's real, yeah.
he just keeps being like, "Those fucking bloodsuckers," and like all this stuff. Like, dude, why are you so mad? Like,
It's not like they can do anything about it.
it's not like they can do anything about it, and the Cullens have a long-running treaty. Clearly there's some level of good behavior between the two of you groups. Like, why are you so mad all the time? Except that, like, you know, his hormones are on overdrive. He's mad about everything because he's still, like, new wolf.
And he's a 16-year-old boy.
And is a 16-year-old boy. That cannot be emphasized enough. And he, is obviously has this giant crush on Bella that she just will not reciprocate because she's so obsessed with Edward, who just happens to be the vampires that he's been created to kill. Like it's a whole thing. And I can understand why it's compelling.
Yeah.
But also, grow up.
So I think some time passes. Harry Clearwater has a heart attack on this wolf hunt that Charlie went on. And he passes away.
Which feels like a bonkers way to get him out of the way.
Yeah, well, we need to put a pin in that for later, don't we?
I guess.
So some time passes, and then Bella is on her way to see Jacob, and she passes the cliffs, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm an adrenaline junkie now.
Yeah.
So she goes to the edge of the cliff, has another conversation with hallucinatory Edward, dives off the cliff, almost dies, gets tossed onto the rocks, almost drowns, goes unconscious, and then Jacob sees her, dives in to grab her and pulls her out of the water and gives her CPR and such. Mm-hmm. And she starts to tell him that she does this stuff to see Edward, but then she has to go back to Forks for some reason. Like, she has to go to... Oh, I remember. She's got to go get ready for the funeral.
Yeah.
That Charlie is planning for Harry Clearwater. Jacobs goes with her because he's kind of at the point where he's like, why can't we just bang?
Why can't we just be together forever and ever, though? Like, I love you so much. And she's like, I like you as a friend. Please
Like
don't.
my brother.
Like my brother.
Yes. And then it seems like they might be on the verge of kissing again, but then she looks in her driveway. Charlie's car is not there. Carlisle's car is. Mm-hmm. And she goes to go into the house. She's like, they're back. And Jacob's like, no! Yeah. I had everything. I was being so smooth. And for some reason he says if you go in there, I can't protect you or something, which I don't really get. I don't understand why. But she says I have to.
Because
I have
of
to
the
go.
treaty.
It's because of the treaty.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like.
But it's weird because Jacob crosses the line all the time to see Bella, and the Collins can't
that's
go.
different because it's him and he's a 16-year-old boy.
No, it's different. It's different because it's a weird metaphor for like, the actual reservation.
Oh yeah.
In that like white people aren't allowed to live here, but they can go wherever they want.
But Bella goes down there all the time.
Yeah, but she can't live there.
That's a good point, I guess.
She doesn't go to school.
That's true.
Like, I don't know if that's really the intention there, but that's always what since I've understood that people can be racist and, like, weird about stuff like that, like, that's what I've understood that part of the treaty as, like, the Cullens aren't allowed on their territory, but they can be wherever they want, because, like, fucking, let them have a space.
So, Bella runs into the house. Who's in the house?
Alice!
Woo! And why is Alice there?
Because she saw her dying because she jumped off a cliff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she didn't see that Bella got pulled out of the water because whenever the wolves are involved,
water.
Alice cannot see Bella.
So
she just saw her dive off of this cliff.
Which makes me wonder how she saw the motorcycle thing. Did she see the motorcycle thing?
I don't think so.
I don't think she mentions it.
No.
No.
She finds out about it later.
Yeah.
So she's like, I saw you try to commit suicide. What the hell is the matter with you?
Yeah.
And Bella's like, oh, I wasn't. I was just cliff diving. And they start to get into why she was doing that, but then Jacob comes bursting into the house, and Bella's like, I thought you couldn't come in here. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm breaking all the rules for you. And then Alice is like, wait a second, when you're here, I can't see past you. Yeah. And she gets really mad and pisses her off. And what happens then?
I mean, they also, just as like a kind of aside, both Alice and Jacob mention how bad Bella smells when they have interacted with the other. Yeah. Like...
Alice thinks the werewolves smell terrible, and the werewolves think
they
that
smell
Alice
like wet dog.
Which, yeah.
And then, like, what do the vampires smell like?
I think he says...
I think it's a really bitter smell or something.
Bitter, like, too sweet and, like, bitter, and it's, like, acidic to him or something.
Yeah.
And then Bella's like, what the fuck? I think Alice smells great. But she doesn't say that.
Yeah.
She
she always thinks Edward smells great for some reason.
Yeah,
God,
which like
anyway, Jacob and Bella go into the kitchen to have a private discussion, and then the phone rings.
they almost kiss.
Again.
And then the phone rings.
And then the phone rings. Who's on the phone, Lori?
Oh my gosh. Well, of course it's Edward, because
Yes.
Alice told him that she saw Bella dying, but like not actually dying.
Yeah.
And he's calling to confirm this, and fucking
Jacob picks up.
picks up.
Because he's closest to the phone.
Yeah.
And he's like
Oh.
Swan residence.
Yeah, but Edward asks for Charlie because
Yeah.
he's not, for whatever reason, thinking Bella's gonna be there or wants to talk to her. And then Jacob fucking goes.
He's at the funeral.
He's at the funeral. The
Like an
pettiest
idiot.
shit. The pettiest shit.
Oh.
And then, you know, the conversation's over, so they hang up. And Bella's like, why would you
Doesn't
do
he like
that?
crush? The thing in the movie is like Edward like crushes the phone in his hand.
In
For
the
some
movie,
reason,
yeah.
he's in Rio de Janeiro, which is super fucking sunny.
In the book, it's Carlisle who called, which, what?
Oh my god, I didn't.
Yeah,
know.
no joke. Bella's like, who was that? And he was like, you know,
Well, then what
Dr.
the-
Carlisle Cullen.
Why would they?
Well, Jacob thinks it's Carlisle, and then
Oh.
he says something that Belle's like, that's not Carlisle, that's Edward or something.
Oh.
Maybe,
Okay.
yeah.
Or I don't even remember. Anyway, so,
Yeah.
and then Alice comes into the room and she's like, the fuck did you just do?
Yeah,
Because
like-
she sees Edward going to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Who's in Italy, Lori?
It's the Volturi.
Who are the Volturi?
Well, the Volturi are this like very old cult of vampires that Carlisle used to belong to. Of just like basically
They're
like.
essentially the royalty.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're the royalty of the vampires.
They set it up earlier when Edward was still around that like this vampire Volturi exists. Carlisle used to be in it, and that they only have 3
Arrow,
rules?
Marcus, and
1
Caius.
rule, 3 rules.
Can't believe you remember the other two's names.
Yeah, honestly.
Don't let the humans know.
Yeah. Don't kill ostentatiously.
Yeah, don't be super obvious
But, like,
about
that
it.
just kind of like links into.
They do,
the-
yeah. But
And if you do tell someone, you have to either kill them or turn them.
yes. But then in the third movie, they emphasize, or no, not the third one. Way later in the fourth one, they emphasize that like, oh, also you're not allowed to turn kids,
Yes.
which like that is a good rule to have. But why was that not a
Yeah.
rule that was worth mentioning in this book, huh?
Because it wasn't important to the
Huh?
plot yet.
It wasn't important to the plot.
I mean, my
Didn't
theory
exist.
about some, like, the earlier books of the series is that, like, Stephenie Meyer was upfront about the fact that she wasn't writing them to publish them. She was just writing them for fun. So, like, she might not have thought that up yet just because
Yeah,
she
exactly.
hadn't thought that far ahead. Which is, like, you know, that's fair. Like,
It
if you
is.
weren't really, if she wasn't writing for publication and she was just doing it for fun, then I'm willing to forgive a lot more, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I just feel like, you know, little note, like, actually, you do have more rules than that, sir.
Yes. So
Yeah.
Alice says, Edward has just gone to the Volturi to ask them to kill him. And Jacob's like, good fucking riddance. And Bella's like, nope.
No.
We have to go save him. And so Alice concocts this plan that they have to go to Voltura, which is apparently a real place in Italy, and they have to go and stop Edward from killing himself, which apparently that's something that you can ask them for when you're done, because he knows better than to ask his family to kill him,
Granted.
because it's very hard to kill a vampire. So off Bella and Alice go to Italy, and she leaves a note for Charlie on the table.
Which, like,
This
Jacob
poor man.
kind of knows. Poor Charlie.
Poor Charlie.
He's at his friend's funeral, comes back, and his daughter's like, I went to Italy.
Bye.
See ya, peace out.
And, like, she wouldn't even be able to explain
No.
really why, even. Like, it's just, And he wants to protect her so badly. He's, like, the one valid man trying to protect this girl. Like,
And she treats him like shit. She's just, well, not quite, I guess, she's not outwardly treating him like shit, but
No.
she's very dismissive of him. And
yeah.
I don't even know. Anyway, so they fly to Italy. Alice steals a yellow Porsche, which is significant later on. And on their way to Volterra, Alice sees that the Volturi have refused Edward. They said, no, we can't. We don't want to do that because we actually want you to join us because your gift is really rare to read minds.
Yeah.
So Edward's like, all right, I can pivot. I'm going to go take my shirt off in the middle of a clock of a piazza in this town, and then they'll have to kill me because I exposed myself to all these people because my skin is sparkly.
Which I'm kind of obsessed with because, like, having them be sparkly means it's extra hard for anyone to believe that that's just not, like, body glitter or some shit, you know? Like, he'd be better off just biting some rando.
Edward is the original Euphoria makeup.
Oh my god.
Okay, but like the original Euphoria makeup is every Pride parade ever.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Side note, the makeup artist is coming out with her own makeup brand, and I'm like, as someone who loves makeup, I'm so excited. Anyway, that's not why we're here. So they get there, and Alice says, "You have to go do this because he will see me coming, but he cannot hear your mind. So you go and stop him." And it happens to be a Saint's Day, so there's a big celebration. There's a parade going on, so it's very dramatic and slow-mo in the movie. Bella is running through the crowds of people. She gets to Edward, manages to knock him over even though he's super strong, and he thinks that they killed him so fast that he's in heaven with her because she's also dead in his mind.
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, this is real. You have to move because you're kind of still near the sun."
My biggest thing though, with like them killing him because he's exposed himself to that many people, that doesn't erase the fact that all of these people have suddenly seen him shirtless and sparkly.
So like, they also have to die, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which they do anyway. They kill large swaths of tourists all the time.
Oh yeah.
Well, true.
Yeah.
And that tiny child in the movie at least did notice. So you
But no one's gonna believe a kid, right?
She'll carry on for the rest of her life, convinced that some man covered in body glitter had like something going on, which like that's something to tell your therapist about, you know?
Theoretically, this whole thing about the mass murder and then the mass murder of the tourists, like, groups that they do, isn't that just one of their rules of, like, don't go around killing a bunch of people and, like, how are you gonna hide up that many people dying all the time in this one location?
Well, no one knows them in that town, so they wouldn't know that they were missing in the first place.
But someone would.
I didn't say it made sense. No,
Remember, these are just for fun.
Yeah. When did we say this made sense?
Sorry, go on.
You're not listening. Anyway, so then Alice catches up, and then we see some people. Who do we see?
Oh my gosh, too many people. Because it's like the rest of the Volturi?
They're like hench people, but the main ones are Jane and Alex.
Jane and Alec are the main bitches.
Love Jane.
Jane is iconic. Like,
Dakota Fanning. My
wasn't
goodness.
it Elle?
I don't know.
I don't remember. But anyway, I love the bit in the movie when they're in the elevator and it's like classical music instead of regular music. That is a great comedy moment that is unearned because the whole crux of that climax is the drama of it all. I'm like, why are you sharing this elevator scene? Stop it. You should just have a swirling staircase. That'd be way more dramatic.
And Edward's like, "We were just on our way," and Jane was like, "Yeah, you were, but you know the big three want to see you now,
Yeah, we wanna
because
talk
you
to
just
you."
almost caused a massive problem."
Yeah.
So they take them downstairs, the three of them, and how would you describe Aro?
Oh my gosh.
How do you even?
He's amazing. But also, he's a dramatic bitch. If anyone has seen Jupiter Ascending, which I know feels like a deep cut,
Is he in that?
no. It's Eddie Redmayne is who I'm thinking of.
Oh.
And
These are not the same people.
they are not the same people. Michael Sheen is Arrow in the movie, and he's amazing in everything he's ever done. I have nothing but pride for Michael Sheen. But Eddie Redmayne and Jupiter Ascending has a whole, like, he will just turn on a dime, be the loudest, quietest, whatever. And I need more villains to be just the campiest fucks in the show. Like, I just need it everywhere. And it's not happening enough, but Arrow is a close one of like, oh, you are so close to being exactly what I want out of a campy urban fantasy villain.
What are his motivations though? He's essentially just trying to collect the vampires with the best gifts.
Yeah,
to be
he
his
just wants
hench
to be
people.
super strong.
Yeah.
Basically, he wants an army. I think is
Wants the king shit.
yeah.
Classic. Power, chaos, good times. I want to make sure that if anything happens, I will come out on top.
Yes, so he's got the gift of he can read minds, but only like Edward, but only if he touches your hand, and it's not just your current. He can see all the thoughts that you've ever had. So he touches Edward's hand, and he realizes that Edward does not want to change Bella. this is a problem because they can obviously see that Bella knows about the vampire secret.
Yeah.
So Arrow does not want to kill Edward because he wants Edward to join them eventually. So he says, all right, well, you have to change her right now. And Edward says, fuck no. And he's like, all right, we'll just kill her then. And then Edward gets into a fight with some of the hench people trying to defend Bella.
Yeah.
There is like foreshadowing to the fourth book here because Aro also touches Bella's hand and he's unable to read her thoughts, and Jane tries to use her gift of pain on Bella, which doesn't work either.
No. Which gets another comedy moment, at least in the movie again, where she gets to be like, this might hurt a little, after we just saw her fucking like making Edward writhe on the floor in pain.
Yeah. She gets mad when she doesn't do anything to him.
Oh, she gets super upset about it. But that just makes Arrow all the more interested in Bella, and like at first you're like, oh, he wants to like try and use her for what her gift could be.
Yeah.
But instead he's like, no, fuck it. This isn't going how I want it to.
Yeah.
She has to die.
Yeah, so he says that, and he also knows that if he kills Bella, Edward will go actually kill himself. Yeah. So he says, okay, if you won't change her right here, that's fine. You can wait a little bit, but you have to do it eventually or we will kill her.
Yeah.
And Edward does not want Bella to die. So they say, okay, we will change her after she graduates from high school. That's like his condition.
Like 1 year, within a year or something.
Yeah.
Wasn't the conviction that like Alice foresaw her being a vampire?
Yeah.
Is that in the books too?
Yeah. Yeah. She shows Aro that she saw Bella as a vampire.
Yeah.
So like
so
that's why they decided.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They like trust that it will actually happen, and that it's not just like the fucking Cullens saying that they're gonna do stuff when they're not all over again.
So they go home. Jacob has thrown a temper tantrum and has implemented this foolproof plan to keep Bella from seeing Edward now that he's back.
Yeah.
He tells Charlie about the fact that they were riding dirt bikes because he knows that Charlie, being a cop, has very strong feelings about dirt bikes. So he grounds Bella, and Jacob's like, beautiful! Now she won't be able to see Edward ever again!
Or you.
Or you.
Negating the fact that Bella has to go to school and Edward like climbs in her window every night and so she gets grounded. That's fine with her. She doesn't care because Edward's back. So Edward comes to see her at night and she's like, you cannot leave again. He's like, I'm not leaving because I just discovered that I can't live without you like as well. And she's like, do you really mean that because you left so easily? And he goes, no, I didn't. How could you believe that I wouldn't want you or that I didn't love you anymore? And it's like, because you fucking said that.
You literally said that. Literally said that.
And then she's like, you're right, it is my fault. And he's like, yes, it is.
Like, why would I trust the things that you say?
Never.
Yes.
Why should I trust you now?
Yeah. Anyway, and then she says, like, why are you so against me becoming like you? And he's like, yeah, about that. I'm not going to change you. We're just going to hide you from the vulture.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, screw this. I have agency. Let's go to the Cullens' house. She puts it to a vote. And Rosalie and Edward are the only ones that vote against her becoming a vampire. Everyone else is like gung-ho. And to the point where and Edward is still going on about his hiding her plan, and Carlisle says, you can't do that because they will find her. And then he says to Bella, if Edward does not agree to this, I will change you myself.
Yeah.
And then Bella and Edward go for a walk, and he proposes. The end!
Not quite.
She gasps.
Yes, but not quite. Because do they not talk? Do they not talk with Jacob? Have a little confrontation there?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember. Do they?
They do in the movie. I didn't get that far in the book.
I can't remember.
We have the book right here.
We do.
We must consult.
Yes, we will consult.
What happens in the movie though?
Because in the movie, when they're driving back from the Cullens' place, Edward is like, he's here. And Bella's like, oh, Mint, pull over. So they get out and walk into the woods, and Jacob is just standing there in his jorts.
In the jorts!
And then he's like, so this is really happening, isn't it? And he's like, I'm glad to see you're still breathing. To Bella.
He's being a little bitch.
He's being such a little bitch. And she's like, listen, Jake, like, I love you. You're my good boy, but Edward is always going to be how this goes. Like, I'm never going to choose you over him, basically.
To Bella's credit, like, I think in a lot of love triangles, there's a lot of from the heroine, like, oh, will I go be with this person?
Yeah.
To Bella's credit, she never leads Jacob on, really. Like, she's
No.
always upfront with him that she doesn't see him that way and that she will always choose Edward. So it's never as though she was suggesting to him that she might change her mind, you know?
No. Like, they do have a few almost kisses, but I feel like that is able to be at least partially excused on her part of, like, he is there, he is warm, he is, like, you love the idea of being loved, like, that sort of shit.
I thought we established earlier he was cold.
Edward's cold. Edward's cold, but Jacob runs very
yes,
hot.
sorry.
Very hot. It is very important for the next book, for my favorite part in the next book.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I always was hotter than you. This is my favorite shit.
AKA the memory that Jacob will have a wet dream to for the rest of his life.
Oh, forever. Forever. And she is so grumpy
The best
about it
moment
the
of
whole time.
Jacob's life, basically.
This poor boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's throwing a little hissy fit, and she's like, "Listen, dude, it was never gonna happen. Like,
It's not gonna happen.
I'm gonna be a vampire, and you're gonna have to either like we're gonna keep being friends or we're not." And he's like,
Doesn't he say, like, you can't be a vampire if I fucking kill him first?
yeah, something like that. And then Edward
he's
gets
the
all ready
only
to
one
fight.
that could turn her into a vampire.
Honestly. Yeah, and then they're both getting ready to fight, and she's like, fucking stop it right now. You can't.
I
No.
was kind of hoping for a fight, but it never happens.
Right.
I wanted them to come to blows so bad.
Right. But also, I can appreciate that they don't. I don't know. I feel like Eclipse is missing out on a lot more dick measuring than it could have.
There was a lot of dick measuring.
There's a lot, but I think it should get more homoerotic. Just like a little bit.
Well, I feel like
I think
it's
that could be a little fun.
lot
Like,
of
Bella has
Jacob-
2 hands.
It's a lot of Jacob trying to do the dick measuring and Edward being like, can you not?
Can you not? Can you not? I am always winning. She already chose me. Yeah.
I put my ring on her finger.
I put my ring on it.
But she doesn't say yes in this one. She's just horrified,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh, yeah, because he's like,
I will change you
After-
if you marry me.
yeah, after Jacob leaves, he's like, okay, I don't, like, she's like, okay, awesome, I'm gonna be changed by graduation. It's mint. And he's like, 5 years. And she's like, no. Because, like, and I was floored when he said that, because, like, what's 5 years gonna do? Except make her look older than him. Like, what is 5 years gonna do? And I'm sure that he's, like, hoping she'll change her mind
Yeah.
within that time, because, like, my mom pulled that shit on me all the time. And it worked, because I got really lazy, so I didn't want to be a goth anymore.
Jeez.
A little tidbit of backstory for Grace.
Grace's origin story coming soon.
Yeah, really. But yeah, like, so then she's like, no, graduation. And he's like, 3 years?
And
She's like, no, graduation. And he's like, okay, but if we're gonna do this, it's gonna be, like, on my terms, and it's gonna be forever.
I mean,
It's gonna be
already
forever.
gonna be-
It was already gonna be forever. But his version of making it forever is, we're gonna get married.
But do you, since I literally
That's Christian shit.
yeah, but like, I'm skimming this right now. Do
Yes.
you remember why? Okay, no, you said you didn't get this far. Do you
No, I
remember why he wants to marry her in the first place?
Isn't it because that's how it was done back in his day?
Because she wants to have sex as a human. She.
It's even more Christian than I thought.
It is.
Don't we not get to that until Eclipse though, or is that brought up here?
I'm like
Brought up
it
here,
was brought up
apparently.
here. It was hold on.
We got another excerpt coming at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a few things. Condition.
That's a whole other thing I feel strongly about. I'll have to get into that.
The sex thing, or calling it a condition?
Condition. Oh yeah, that's a little little much.
Hmm.
Was it?
Oh, are they in the meadow again?
I don't know. No, they're in the house.
Okay.
Because that's a whole thing as well. It's like Charlie. So the way that it happens in the movie is not the way that happens in
No.
the book, obviously. But like, you know, he proposes to her and drops off at the house or whatever. And then it's like part of the epilogue that they see Jacob, because it's like a while later she's trying to get in touch with him. And
Yeah, they condense a lot for the movie, but it's all pretty much there.
Yeah, but then like the epilogue of her seeing Jacob is he comes to the house as a representative of the pack to be like,
Hey, you staying?
no, to be like, if you make her a vampire, our treaty is done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not allowed to bite people.
Yeah.
Which is stupid.
And everyone's like, I mean, that's
A little bit.
Just take it somewhere.
she also, at some point, I can't remember when now, admits that Edward bit her.
Just
and
save
Jacob
her.
And Jacob's like, yo, what the fuck? How are you not a vampire then? And she's like, oh, don't worry about it.
Doesn't work
Edward
that way.
sucked the venom out, so I'm fine. Which, like, no, you're fucking not, but okay. Like, you're not a vampire, but you're not fine.
Me either.
Same hat, no way. Which, like, I will also give Twilight this. I feel like we talked about it in the last one as well.
What?
Or at least, like, just IRL conversations, that this book, only 2 of our vampire characters, including Bella, are convinced that being a vampire is a bad thing. Because, like, just on every level, it's not that bad. It is not worse than being a human. It's just not. Like, so often these vampire stories try to emphasize that, like, they're all jealous of humans for, like, whatever reason. And in this one, it's about having a soul, for Edward at least.
But it's also comes back to it being a very Christian concept.
It's a very Christian thing for him.
Yeah.
So, like, what the fuck ever. At least for Rosalie, her thing, which we don't find out until Eclipse, is
We
that,
don't get
like,
a backstory till later.
her vampirism was forced on her, and she feels a lot of resentment for it.
At least
now.
with her, though, it's kind of justified. Like, once
Oh,
you find...
super justified!
Yeah, she is, like, at least has, like, a concrete reason for feeling how she's feeling. And once you hear her backstory, you're like, oh, yeah, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense. Whereas Edward doesn't really have a concrete reason for feeling the way he feels.
No, he didn't even have to, like, watch the rest of his family die, or, like, murder everyone he knows just because he couldn't control his bloodlust. Like, nothing that usually makes vampires regret being vampires is up with him. It's literally just the soul thing, and I hate it. I think it's wasted.
Okay, I lied. It's not the condition of having sex with him. It starts off with the negotiation of she wants Edward to turn her, and he's, like, bargaining more of her human life for this. But then, for God knows what reason, he changes it to the condition of marry me. And it's like, you're already, like, being like, no, it's not gonna be me to do it. Like, you know? Just really weird that he's adding another thing that she has to do.
Yeah.
So that, like, now that we're at the end, this is... Let me start at the beginning of things that bother me.
SOS.
So, okay, I maintain what I said with the last book. I don't think the last book is that problematic. Like, at worst, they're super over-dependent on each other, but I even sort of feel like, okay, you know, if that's really the only complaint... I mean, there are other books that are like that, too. It's not really... It's whatever.
And again, it's a high school romance. That's kind of just how it feels.
And then with this one, the problem that I have is that her mental health crisis is pretty romanticized, I think. Like, particularly when she starts, like, she's hallucinating Edward. Because when she tells him about doing reckless acts to see him, he's horrified. He has no idea what she's talking about. Because he's like, no, I wasn't projecting to you in any way or anything like that. And it's kind of not explained away, we just don't really talk about it thereafter, and it's just kind of brushed off as, oh, it's so romantic, like she wanted him so badly that she was like this bitch was hallucinating to the point where she was doing stupid shit.
I want to push back on that a little bit, because I wouldn't call it romanticized, especially because every other character in this book is like, yo, Bella, what the fuck? Like, it's clearly just her being unhinged and a little bit in need of help that she's just not getting.
But doesn't the fact that they get back together kind of validate?
No, especially if Edward thinks it's a bad thing. Like, he sees that she at least was in a very bad place, to the point where she was putting herself in danger to see a hallucination of him that he had no control over. Like, I feel like that should have been more. I definitely think it should have been more of a conversation between the two of them. Or at least, like, something that he mentions to Carlisle or something that he mentions to Charlie. Like, it shouldn't be something that just doesn't happen anymore, like it is. But I wouldn't call it romanticized. I think it's just poorly handled.
Yeah.
But it's tough because it's from her perspective.
Yeah.
So we see things as she does, which, like, she probably wants to brush it off a little bit.
That's true.
Especially if Edward is the one who's being like, no, that's not good.
Yeah. Like, there's also... I mean, the second major problem I have with this is that towards the end, when he's bargaining with her over this, I just sort of feel like it's not... I just hate that. Like, you know, it's her decision, really. It has nothing to do with you. And the fact that you are bargaining with her, she has expressed at this point her views on marriage, that she thinks it's symbolic, and that after seeing her parents' marriage, she really doesn't think it's necessary. And it's really not, because they're going to be together forever, you know? Like, the assumption is that once she's changed, she's going to stay with Edward, so really, what is marriage? Like, none of the other Cullens are married, I don't think, except... Well, no, Carlisle and Esme are.
Yeah.
And Edward even says that Esme likes the planning process so much that they do it again every, like, 100 years or so.
That's adorable.
Which is fun, right?
Oh my god.
It's fun. Actually, they're like one of my favorite, I think my favorite couple in this series. I actually really like Carlisle and Esme. I think they're cute together.
They are so sweet. Like, actually. They're probably one of the few couples that I'm like, yeah, they are in love. Like, yeah, they are together. Like, the other ones, it feels a bit more like, oh, they were there.
They were just there, yeah, exactly.
And, like, we don't get a whole lot of setup for, like, Jasper and Alice, except that, like, she found him and made him a better person, which, like, oof.
He's also got an interesting backstory, though.
He does, but also, like, that's we'll put a big pin in that for later.
Yeah, when we do book 3. So those are my two big problems. Like, especially the conditions thing. Like, I just hate that so much. Like, he knows how she feels about marriage, and she has said that marriage is not for her. And he's like, well, it's the same because you're forcing me to do something I don't want. It's like, it's not even remotely the same fucking thing, dude.
Especially because, like, many of the other Cullens have said, like, if he won't do it, then I will. Like, like, Carlisle is definitely the one that's emphasized, but I have no doubt that Alice would be willing to do it if she felt she had the self-control. Like, Emmett, hell yeah, Emmett, he would be on board so hard if she asked him. Like, it really is such a pivotal thing that neither Jacob nor Edward actually give her the agency that she has. And I feel like that blinded a lot of people who were criticizing this book for Bella's characterizing. Like, no, she does a lot of shit and she makes a lot of decisions, but she's consistently stopped making those decisions by her love interests, and it's a fucking waste.
Mm-hmm. I just don't understand. Like, it's like, dude, you gotta pick one. Because, like, at this point, he's made it clear that he's not gonna live without her. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, so what's the big issue about changing her then? You know?
Exactly.
Like, she's gonna die eventually if you don't. So you gotta pick a side here. You can't just, like, waffle in the middle, my dude.
And this business of, we have to be married before I'll do this so that you'll stay with me forever.
It's like, she was gonna do that anyway.
Yeah, it just introduces a new, like, insecurity that he doesn't actually have, where he's convinced that she will leave him after she becomes a vampire, which, like, that was never on the table. That was never a question. She has never expressed interest in anyone but him. Why would he even slightly think that this was a possibility?
But there's the jealousy of the 16-year-old boy who's shirtless and jorts wearing.
The jorts.
Even though she has consistently claimed her stake on Edward in front of Jacob.
Yeah. So,
well, only once at this point, but still. She made it very clear to him that she was not going to pursue a romantic relationship with Jacob in front of Edward.
Do we think, though, that because she turned to Jacob when Edward wasn't there, that when she suddenly has agency as a vampire, he will ditch her for Jacob, or she will ditch him for Jacob?
Is that what it really is? That when she's a vampire, he won't be able to control her as easily?
Yes.
I mean, he isn't. And when you fast forward to Breaking Dawn, he is way more respectful of her.
I know, and I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It's the worst.
Yeah. I mean, did you guys like this one? Like, I know we bitch. It's in the title. Mom, I know you're listening. You complained about us bitching all the time. It's in the title.
I'll be honest. First time I read these, it was like, I read them in like, you know, a March break, like, you know? And they all just kind of like blend together because they all, you know, have this very basic, like, Shakespearean plot of like people like fighting for each other, and it's just like, I personally dislike this one the most, but mostly because I just dislike Jacob so much.
He starts off okay, and then he just disappoints us like everyone else in this book. Except Charlie.
Except Charlie.
Except Charlie, who is the most unrealistic representation
Well, we
of
like
parents.
Angela. We like Angela.
Do you not like Jess? Do you like Angela more than Jess?
Yeah. Angela's smart. For some reason, Jessica becomes valedictorian and not Angela.
Because Jessica is secretly smart.
Oh, yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. I enjoy rewatching the other movies. Again, I don't have as much of attachment to the books, but this is not one that I go to. Even as someone who liked Jacob, I don't as much after psychoanalyzing him a little bit harder. And again, like, this movie this story makes me not like him. And I feel like he's so much more, like, charming in his pettiness in Eclipse, and in Twilight he's, like, not there often, but when he is, he's just a good sweet boy. Like, he's a puppy. He's a puppy in the first section.
In Eclipse, he kind of gets over himself briefly.
He gets over himself, and then he's just, like, the cheeky Han Solo. Like, But then I experience this, and I'm like, oh, maybe he does suck a little bit. But Edward sucks more. He continues to suck more.
I think if I had to rank them, for me personally, it would be, like, Eclipse is first, then Twilight, then New Moon, then Breaking Dawn. Breaking Dawn is my least favorite because nothing really happens. At least in this one, stuff happens towards the end.
That's true.
You know? Like, in
Very
Breaking Dawn,
dramatic
the climax that we build up to the whole time doesn't actually happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. So the fan theory I was going to tell you guys about?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how, like, Jacob and Edward are polar opposites to the point where it's almost painful? Like, we've got one that's cold and one that's warm, and one whose heart beats and one whose doesn't, and, you know?
Yeah.
So some people on the internet have cooked up this theory that because it's like a seesaw metaphor, like, they're each on one side of the seesaw, but something's got to be in the middle to control said seesaw. So people have managed to convince themselves that somewhere in this world, witches and warlocks are existing to serve as a buffer between the vampires and the werewolves.
Sure.
We don't get, like, international werewolves like we do international vampires, though, right?
No, I don't think so.
No. So I would sooner be convinced that we are meant to understand this werewolf phenomenon as singular to this community, or at least to America.
Yes.
Which makes me less on board with this seesaw idea. As much as I love it when there's, like, so many weird random monsters introduced into an urban fantasy setting. I think it's the tits. I think it's so fun and funny, especially when you can, like, actually justify the existence of all these creatures in the same universe. I'm working on it myself. It's really hard. But yeah, no, that is... I do think it's worth exploring what else could be existing in this universe, but...
It's true.
It would be interesting. Like, I've even said that, you know, much as we like to bitch about it, if Stephenie Meyer released... I don't think I would buy it if she released another, like, New Moon from Edward's perspective. But she has said that she's working on the Renesmee Jacob story. I would probably read that just to say I did, you know?
I think I would read that because I want more of the werewolf lore. I've heard, like... I know of random bits and pieces, and I know we get more in Breaking Dawn. Do we get more of the werewolves?
We get more in Eclipse.
In Eclipse. Because when Leah gets introduced, we get her fun story, but, like, you never get enough of the wolves, for me personally, to, like, really, really, really like them, and I want to like them. Even with the weird imprinting business that, like, people find a little sketchy, like, I want more. I want to know more.
The imprinting thing is just another aspect of, like, the common werewolf trope of, like, the mating and, like, you know, the bite thing that they do. Like, it's just another iteration of it.
Yeah, that's why I was never, like, I feel like the more I've gotten into werewolf stuff, the less I've been like, oh, this is a really creepy thing that she did, which obviously we can talk more about in Breaking Dawn because that's when it's an actual proper plot point. But, like, and she
nicknamed my daughter after the Loch Ness monster!
like, she does try to justify it in the way that, like, this isn't always a sexual thing.
No,
but
he says it's very platonic.
Initially, but yeah, and it does, since I've read the first book of Green Creek, Wolf Song, which, like, there's a 7-year age gap, and they meet when the oldest one is a teenager, so, like, that kind of deals with it better, I find, because it doesn't try to think too hard about the mating thing, even though, like, the next day after they've met, like, he hands over the totem that, like, symbolizes his love for this guy. It's super cute. I fucking love those books. But I feel like because she works so hard to over-explain it, it makes it sound sketchier than it is, because it feels like a big old defense of something that people haven't accused you of yet, and then the longer you defend it, the more you're like, oh, maybe this is a weird thing that we should think harder about.
I mean, the other thing too is, like, this is a super minor thing, but I mean, so every time that the imprinting thing is explained, it's very male centric. But we know that we get a female werewolf. So does Leah Clearwater imprint on anyone? Can she? Like, how does it change when Leah is the werewolf? Does she have to have a werewolf mate? Is it gonna be a human dude or girl?
Yeah. I know, I feel like that's part of it too, is that, like, because her universe is so het and so Christian that, like, you can't have those fun gender conversations as deeply as you should.
Yeah, if Leah were to have a partner in this series, it would definitely be a dude.
Yeah, like, it just would, because that's who Stephenie Meyer is. Like, but even the fact that she has a female werewolf and, like, slightly touches on that conversation where all of these men exist and are werewolves and all the werewolves have always been dudes, and suddenly we got a lady. Like, even the slight thought of that, I'm like, oh, that is so juicy. Stephenie, please, why?
Well, they also say, like, Leah's mom, after Harry Clearwater dies, Leah's mom, they make a point of saying, becomes the first female on the Council of Elders, I think it's called. Like, all the representatives from the families are there, they're all men, and Sue Clearwater is the only one that's female, which is...
Like, what's that about?
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
What's this fun gender stuff going on in the Clearwater family?
Yeah, and we also get into the gender stuff in the lore in Eclipse with the tale of the third wife.
Yes, because that's, again, we'll talk about it more later, but that's
Bella likes that story a little too much.
Too much.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's New Moon. I'm trying to think of, like, I feel like the wolf genre is very underutilized.
It is. It really is.
Or if it is, there's usually in pairing with something else.
Yes.
I guess I read the Mercy Falls series by Maggie Stiefvater. It's like the first series she came out with.
Patricia Briggs does a lot of werewolf stuff, but I haven't read most of it.
Jeez, have I read anything else that's werewolf? I don't think so. No, that's a lie. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but Cressley Cole in her Immortals After Dark series does. I mean, I think it's pronounced Lykae in her.
Lycan?
But it's Lykae.
Oh.
So I think it's Lykae there. I could be wrong though.
That's fun.
But they don't shift fully into wolves. They just become like beastly humanoid-ish.
Like a Harry Potter.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. Well, I guess werewolves are in Harry Potter because we have Grayson. What's his name?
What's his name?
Greyback. Thank you.
What the hell's his first name?
Lupin!
I thought it was Grayson. No, there's Greyback and then there's Lupin.
Do you remember the guy who turned Lupin into a werewolf?
I think it was Greyback.
Yeah, it was Greyback.
Is he the Death Eater that's a werewolf?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the one that kills Lavender Brown. Spoilers for a different book.
Spoiler for a different book. I mean, even saying that Lupin is a werewolf is technically a spoiler.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's
still.
true.
Or do we meet any other werewolves in Harry Potter? I don't think so. I think it's just two.
But, like, there's the whole thing about when Hagrid goes and, like, lives with the giants to, like, convince the giants, and, like, Lupin goes and lives with the werewolves to, like, convince the werewolves. Like, we don't explicitly meet any of them.
But it's, like, there's others,
Yeah. And, like, the other thing, too, is that it's explained, this is a whole entire other book. We don't have to get into this.
Okay.
We will.
Okay. But
you started. You have to.
Okay. The whole thing about that is, like, werewolves are turned away from society because we all know J.K. Rowling is transphobic, homophobic bitch, that, werewolves are...
They're an HIV
Yes,
metaphor.
exactly.
They all have AIDS.
So-
With werewolfism is AIDS.
Werewolves aren't allowed in society.
Oh, true.
They're
'cause
all
it's
shunned.
in their blood, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't put those two together.
Yep, and then after everyone finds out that he's a werewolf, he gets fired. It fills me with so much rage. Lupin was the best. I have so many feelings about Remus Lupin. I love him with all my fucking
He's
heart.
great. Him and Tonks, man. Also, the actress that plays Tonks in the movies, I know we're talking about the books, but she's also a badass in Game of Thrones.
Oh,
Osha.
yes. Lovely.
So, she tries against Ramsay Bolton. Doesn't work, but you know what? The effort was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we were talking about that, how werewolfism is usually a metaphor for things, and how in this book it's very much like a puberty masculinity thing.
Yeah.
So like it is fun in theory to have it be something different. But HIV is a bit sketchy. Personally, I think maybe.
Yeah.
Is it? I've heard people say that the grayscale in Game of Thrones is also perhaps a metaphor for HIV.
Oh.
I'm not familiar with enough
I feel
with
like
that
that
franchise.
one was more, oh my god, I can't think of what it's called, but where you're like, it eats away at your skin.
Leprosy.
Leprosy.
Leprosy. We got there.
Have you seen Game of Thrones? Like, do you know what this is?
I have seen a few spare
Yeah.
episodes, including the one where Ramsay gets eaten by dogs.
that's
That's
fun.
great.
It is a good one.
Grayscale, like, long story short, is just like if you get touched with someone with grayscale, your skin starts turning to stone and you become like a stone monster, and it can't be cured.
That's a
I can't remember, do you freeze as stone eventually?
No,
or
you become
can still move?
a monster.
Interesting.
Like, go mad. Like they, that's where I think it's Volantis is where the stone men are quarantined and they live there. Oh yeah, because Tyrion and what's his face, Mr. Friendzone get attacked.
Mr. Friendzone.
Sorry.
That's too good.
Sorry.
Go on.
They get attacked as they're going because he's like, this is how I can be unfriend-zoned if I bring Tyrion
Oh
to
my
Daenerys
gosh.
Targaryen, and they travel
Yeah.
through the Stone City and they get attacked, and that's how he gets Mormont. That's his name. That's how Mormont gets
I was gonna
grayscale.
say, now I can't remember his actual name.
Oh my
I
god.
think
Mr.
Friendzone.
Friendzone. It's perfect.
It
Oh my
is
god.
good.
Is it really even Friendzone? That's more like Servant Zone.
Oh.
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
I do want to bring it back to New Moon with that.
Yeah,
Because
anyway.
one of my favorite things, which like this could reveal too much about me, but I really love it in like monster loving fiction when like the monster gets to go a little bit crazy, or at least when we encounter some kind of like also the same kind of monster but a little bit crazy, like Vampire Diaries. I feel like is a decent example because Stefan has his whole
Ripper face.
Ripper stuff. The Ripper stuff. Like that's so sick. That's so
Yeah.
cool. And I feel like with all the talk about how werewolves are like uncontrollable and stuff, it is taken too seriously. I feel like the fact that what is the wife's name? I immediately have forgotten it. Sam's fiance. Emily. Like the fact that she has like visible scarring from him like phasing too close to her, like that's not what I want out of it. I want it to be more fun. I think like the bit where Paul kind of goes bonkers just because Bella slapped Sam, like threatened the alpha or whatever, like that could have gone somewhere amazing and it just doesn't because it is immediately resolved because that's not the focus of the story. But I want it to be the focus of the story so bad.
I have to admit something.
Admit
it. I'm giving you this tidbit of information so that you can go investigate, but I expect you not to judge me. This is a judgment-free space.
It is.
So last month when I was got delayed in my TA payments from Dow, I was forced to scavenge for books on Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I came across this werewolf series called The Berserkers from Lee Semino.
Oh my god.
Okay.
And if you want a trip,
Oh boy.
that's a trip.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it's a good trip because it's not, but it's a trip
My
nonetheless.
thing is that like I don't want our monster lovers to be domestic violency, but I do
No.
want them to go a little bit feral.
Yeah, they do.
Does
they
that-
do.
does
And
that
not,
make sense?
Not only
Yeah.
do you end up with one monster, you end up with two. Each.
Oh, it's this one that you were talking
No,
about.
this is a different one.
Oh, even better.
This
did-
Is, This, like, every girl ends up with 2 wolfy men. So, there you go.
Yeah.
That's spicy.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Please don't not alone.
yeah.
Have you read?
I think I started like the first book, and then I never got back to it. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and it doesn't become clear that's what's gonna happen, and then it just happens, and you're like, oh!
I'm just gonna see
Yeah.
your thoughts on Kobo.
It's interesting.
Yeah, if you start, I mean, we're talking like worse than that blue alien porn that Michelle dared me to read.
The
Ice Planet Perverse.
Yeah.
So good. Oh, I found that one. Someone had a TikTok where it was just like, I came here for the alien porn, and this book had the audacity to have a good plot.
Yeah.
Like,
I've
Does
read
it
that.
does it have a good?
The first one
Yeah,
is
it's fine.
free.
Oh,
Nice.
The first
Are
one
you
is
downloading
free.
it?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Fucking yes.
Okay.
Oh, V.
I do.
if that has to
can't
live,
not.
if that has to live rent free in my brain, it has to live rent free in yours too. Okay.
She's ours
Yeah.
to protect, to endlessly pleasure. We need
Stop.
her to break the curse,
No.
so she must
No.
choose.
Stop. No.
Oh my gosh!
God.
Sold to the berserkers. Who is this One Direction?
Yeah. A little bit.
No way!
It's.
Oh, I can't fucking wait. I
Oh,
can't
God.
fucking
Are
wait.
you gonna start this when you go home,
I don't know. It depends.
dude?
Wait, I want to bring it back to the book a little
Yes.
bit because when you brought up about just like monsters going feral,
Yes.
Yeah.
it reminded me of the fact that like so many werewolf stories just rely so heavily on werewolves being tied to indigenous peoples or like people of color.
Yeah.
And it just ties that idea of feralness and
Yes.
wildness and violence with these people, and it's such a horrible racialized thing.
It's
It's
horrible.
also though, but then like with this particular example, you also we talked a little. I think this was less of an issue in the second one. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in the first movie, when the werewolves are more back characters, they weren't portrayed by indigenous actors. I think that changed as they became more major characters. Is that true, or am I mixing that up with?
I don't know if that changed in this one as much, but I know that like in Eclipse they introduced more actual indigenous actors. But like Taylor Lautner continues to not be an indigenous actor. He is just a spicy white.
I thought he had a little bit of Latins.
I don't
Latino
think so.
heritage.
I don't think so.
Latinx, sorry.
I don't think so. I am willing to be wrong and open to it because I don't
that's
look
not
that
bad.
deeply into celebrity stuff. But yeah, no, Taylor Lautner is not at all associated. He's just like a little tan and has black hair.
Yeah. It's the early 2000s. What do you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I've you know,
They
this
weren't
is a-
gonna do better.
No. Like this kind of stuff is a deep interest of mine. So like the consistency of werewolves being like lower class or like the blue collar monster,
Yeah.
where the vampires are like always white, aristocratic, or at least rich,
Constantly paired together.
constantly paired together. And like Twilight didn't start that, but it definitely did popularize it for young adult fiction.
Interesting. Okay, his mother is Anishinaabe.
Oh,
You should know
what?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
It's all good.
Okay, then he's slightly more valid.
But there's no excuse for that wig. I'm sorry.
No, it's a bad wig. And I have heard a lot of commentary on disliking that they all cut their hair when they become wolves
That's a
because
very
that
spiritual
it's a
thing.
very
Yeah.
spiritual thing to
Yeah.
have your hair be long. And even though it is a bad wig and he does not look great with long hair, like I like him to have the short hair. I think it looks better on him. I think it's also worth mentioning that like it's not important that he looks better with short hair.
Yeah.
Like it is an intensely like spiritual and an important thing to
Yeah.
them to have that hair, and like it is a very significant, and it is a pretty classic thing to like change your hairstyle when you have a big character changing. Like Zuko of Avatar cuts all his hair off when he decides to have a redemption arc.
It is really interesting though that they
But-
pair like the cutting off of the hair, which is, you know, the indigenous people like being removed from their spirituality with this connection to them coming into their werewolf side.
Yeah.
Especially because that's like it is interesting as a choice, but it's also interesting in that like that is actually also a spiritual practice, at least in this universe. It's like paired up with this legend and with this heritage and tradition and like this important role within their community. But to have to like, it's like when I don't remember what their name is, but there was a group of like crusaders is what I'm gonna call them, that would be baptized, but they had to hold their sword out of the water because their actions as soldiers, like they had to be baptized people, but like their action as a soldier was outside of the will of God or some shit like that. I don't totally remember the story on it, but like that's kind of what it reminds me of like, is this werewolfism replacing your spirituality, or is it superseding it? Like, are you no longer connected, but you are? Like, it just doesn't feel thought through or respected at all, which like we didn't know. But yeah, I don't know, it's fucking weird. It's a fun time though.
Have you read From Blood and Ash?
I've been
Not
told
yet.
to.
I've picked it up. I have not. I own it.
we have a speech being charged.
That's another book talk one, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's brought up similar feelings, and yeah, because the werewolves are like black, and it's basically like they were forcibly tied to the vampires, which I can't remember what they call them in
Like actually
that
tied?
series.
In like
Not like physically tied, but
in like a serving way.
Yeah, in a serving
I
way,
see.
and it was like a bond that like I forget linked their lives or whatever. But then they like broke out of this and then chose to stay in that role.
That's problematic.
That's
Very
sketchy.
problematic, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah. See, that's why I kind of can also appreciate when, like, especially urban fantasy doesn't try to have all the, like, a whole bunch of other monster things. Like, I know I just said that I really like it when I do that, but, like, again, my favorite middle school vampire time, Chronicles of Vladimir Todd, like, there's only vampires in that. That's it. There's, like, some kind of weird different kinds of vampires, and some of them have different powers, but, like, it lets it so that they can say stuff like vampires invented the PlayStation and not have it be like a sketchy racism thing or like a sketchy classism thing. Like, the only weird thing you're going to stumble upon is vampires, so they can be of any station.
Holy
Like,
crap,
that'd
I'm
be cool.
stupid.
What?
The Mortal Instruments, they have vampires
Oh,
and werewolves. I
Yeah, they
do. Oh,
I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah,
just-
because Luke is a werewolf.
yeah.
Blue collar.
Oh my god.
Blue collar werewolves. They're everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
Although,
Oh,
does
jeez.
Vampire Diaries have werewolves?
Yeah.
Oh, true, yeah.
Of course they do!
Tyler.
Don't of course they do.
Sorry.
Right?
Okay, but this is what I
Oh,
like.
right, because they have a half werewolf.
Yes.
What about that one that everyone else, the other vampire that everyone likes?
I was thinking
takes
of
place
Teen
in
Wolf.
Louisiana, True Blood.
True Blood.
Is that
True
Oh.
Blood. They do.
Yes.
They also have Were-Panthers. The Were-Panthers are weird because they're they're a white low-class incesty group. Yeah, the like main storyline. Again, I've only watched the
Lannister
TV
wolves.
series.
Got it.
Yes. I've only watched the TV series, so I don't know what happens in the books, but it is a key plot line that the main character's brother gets kidnapped by this group, and they, like, try to rape him to introduce new genes into the gene pool.
Incest is problematic, yes.
It is, but it's also really sketchy to have these, like, half-feral poor people living in the trailer town being the ones who are raping, incest. Like, that's not ideal. But Alcide is our main werewolf, and he is briefly our main character's boyfriend.
Sookie?
Sookie. I couldn't think of her name.
I have not seen either the books or the TV series.
Yeah.
A little bit before my time, so
Gotcha.
everything I know about them is based on cultural osmosis.
Yes. But yeah, Alcide is our werewolf, and he has, like, the full Cajun accent.
Aren't they in Louisiana?
They are in
Yeah.
Louisiana, but the people who have the Cajun accent are Alcide, who is kind of from out of town, but not really, and then our black gay cook, whose name I also forget right now, and I feel bad about it because I really like him. But yeah, Alcide getting to be the boyfriend. When he is her boyfriend, he's the worst. Like, he kind of sucks. But he is also very much like, I drive a beaten down truck and wear flannel, where Bill is like, heralded by the town as this amazing guy. Bill is our vampire, for extra context.
Isn't there another vampire?
Yes. Eric rocks. He's top tier, but he only gets better the longer it goes on, and everyone else gets worse. So it kind of, it's a trade-off.
Jazz has been trying to convince me to watch that. I should probably do that at some point.
I mean, if you want to, I watched it and raged a lot because their handling of queer stuff is awful, and there's a whole thing where a guy shoots a black dude unprompted, and then that's the season finale, and then the next season the sheriff takes the blame for it, and then the guy who shot the black dude is a cop now. It is just so unaware, so aggressively, not unlike Twilight, just to bring it back to the book real quick, that frustrates me, but it is entertaining in its own right at the same time, I did watch all of it. I did finish that series. But I'm also consistently starved for vampire content, and it was there.
Go check out the vampire section on Wattpad. You'll be busy for a couple days straight, and then you'll be committed because you'll lose your mind.
Yeah. I think about it sometimes, but then I just open AO3 instead. I'm much happier.
Yeah. That's valid. So, that's New Moon. And a bunch of other stuff.
Lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
That's okay, though.
I think so. Lots of feelings.
Yes.
They all tie back. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Eventually we will do Eclipse when we feel like it at some point. We also Grace Mazzari, we have to do book 3 of Avatar.
I know. I can't wait to chirp it the entire time. It'll be great.
Yeah.
But if I just don't read book 2, but I read book 3. I'll just open up to the sex scenes, read those, keep going.
I mean, they're far less exciting. They take place in war camps instead of bathtubs of paint. So.
Tables of paint.
Yeah. It's not any better, okay?
No.
That's not any better.
It's not. Oof.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us, Lori. That was fun. Thank you for allowing us to kidnap you.
Yeah,
this was fun. So thank you all for listening. We'll be back at some as yet to be determined date.
As usual.
As usual. We don't have a schedule.
No.
With some as yet to be determined book. So thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe and rate our podcast and share it, even if you are saying this is the worst thing I've ever heard, because it still counts for our engagement. Okay, you'll hear us next time. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.